here we go. You're going to receive a copy of this deck via email after this webinar is over. So this page simply tells you a little bit more about me if you aren't familiar with me. That my background is journalism, that I started my first business way back in 1987, and it gives you some links to connect with me, to my book called The Phone Book, to my coaching program, to LinkedIn, because I really love to be connected with everyone there on LinkedIn, and of course to my blog. So you'll have those links live when you receive the deck at the end. So when it comes to following up, I want everybody to think about what you're telling yourself. What I run across the most often is that people believe they are pestering the person. And so I think it's a good idea to take a look at the words themselves. So the word pest comes to us from the Middle French, and it dates to around 1550. And it means like a plague, like locusts or something, a pestilence, something really noxious or troublesome. That's what a pest is. And when I am working with people, what I like to say is a pest is someone who continually contacts you after you say no. That to me is a pest. But persistence, which comes to us also from the Middle French, roughly around the same time, means something that's lasting, enduring, and permanent, which is, of course, what we want our relationships to be with our potential clients, right? We want to present ourselves as someone who endures and who is interested in a long-term trusting relationship. And I want you to think about the people in your life that you want to be persistent. So we want our doctor to be persistent. I want my plumber to be persistent. Um, who are some of the people in your life? My renovator, I want them to be persistent. My executive assistant, be persistent at solving the problem. My computer people, when I take them in my hard drive, I want them to be persistent. So persistent is a characteristic we actually admire and we want in the people we trust and choose to work with. Some other words that we can consider when we're talking to ourselves about being persistent, I think anyway, are responsible, accountable, and reliable. These are the words that go along for me with the word persistent. So in chat, if you have other words that go along with our conversation on persistent, please put them there. And also, if there are professions that you really count on to be persistent, share that with us in chat as well. What I believe to be true, what I know to be true, is that when we are working with potential customers or customers, they have a proposal in front of them, they have something they're considering that you've sent them, that the answer isn't no until they tell you no. That's what you want to hear. No means no. I want my bookkeeper to be persistent. Yes, Linda, absolutely true. Great example. Great example. So I'm going to tell you some persistence stories or some that I've encountered in my career. So settle in to enjoy these stories. This one is from a colleague, Steve Foran. So several years ago, I did a 90-minute workshop for the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And that's where I met Steve. And he was in the audience, and I talked about persistence. And the next day, he followed up on a potential client that he had talked to about a workshop. So he wrote me this amazing testimonial about having a return of 5,000% on my workshop fee. And I thought that was such an amazing thing to be able to say. But he went back to his office, and the next day he phoned this potential client. He'd given up on them, they hadn't responded to his emails or his phone calls. So he had decided that the answer was no. Now, when he followed up, the client answered the phone and said, "Oh, yeah, of course we want to do that workshop. Let's set a date." Simply because he followed up. So there you go, 5,000% gain there on that. And that's often what happens. Another story that was shared with me by a client. So this is a busy mother of 4 children who owned, at the time, 3 franchises. So try to imagine that busy, busy family and that busy, busy working life. And she happened to be home when a representative from a lawn maintenance company knocked at her door, and they said, "Would you like a quote on how we can look after your lawn this year?" And she said yes right away. She was really eager to get something off the family to-do list. So he did drop off the quote a few days later, but then she never heard from him again. And what she said to me when she shared this story with me was, "I need people to follow up with me. I actually need people to chase me if they want me, if they want to hear my decision." So she had already decided to work with the company. But in order to finalize it, she needed them to take full responsibility for creating the relationship because she is really busy. They never followed up. They didn't get her business. Now, this is one of the things that happened to me very early in my days as the phone lady. I ended up having a car dealership ask me to do some work with their sales team. And we had a meeting beforehand to sort of fill me in on more details around the automotive industry and to plan what the training would be like. And when I arrived at that meeting, the sales manager sat across from me and he said, "Do you know why you're here?" And I was taken aback by the question. I said, "Well, I'm here so that we can plan the training for your team." And he shook his head and he said, "You are here because you called me 6 times," which I had done. He said, "Lots of salespeople call me, but they'll only call me 2 or 3 times and then they'll give up." He said, "I'm never going to work with them. I need to see persistence in order to know that I can work with someone and they're going to keep their word." So he was actually judging the salespeople that contacted him based on their ability to follow up. So a different way of looking at it, but again, that follow up being very important to getting the business. And this is a story about how follow up impacted me. So there's an entrepreneur in my world who is also a friend and a colleague. And she really recognized that I was making my work life a little bit too difficult for myself. Um, and that she could help. And she offered many, many, many times to help me with my blog and several other things. But I have a tendency to like to control things, and I tend to be stubborn. Um, so she finally said, "Look, I'm going to make this really easy. I'll come to you. You pick the spot where we have coffee, but we really should see each other. Just enjoy a cup of coffee together." And so she did. She made herself fully available, and she presented several ideas to me of how we could work together. And then she said, "Let's at least give this a try." So she made it very easy for me to say yes. And that relationship has been invaluable to me. And I don't think she'll mind if I share that I am talking about Linda Daly, who does the background of organizing all the emails that go out for this webinar, does a lot of work to help me create my blog every 2 weeks, make sure I get a client newsletter out roughly every quarter. She's become an essential part of the success of the Phone Lady and Inspire Conversation. But it wouldn't have happened if she hadn't been persistent. And my success at the Phone Lady would probably be less because she has become such an essential part of how this company works. So, those are 4 examples of how following up was essential to success, right? So Suzanne is asking, at what point does it go from being persistent to being a pest? In the past, I've tried repeatedly to contact a CEO. He didn't answer my phone calls, return my messages or emails. Then I heard through the grapevine that this person thought I was being complete pain and he was too busy to respond. Okay. So without knowing all of the specifics of that, Suzanne, um, it may be a language issue in the emails or the voicemails, not sure. Um, it may be a personality thing at his end. I'm going to give you some of the language that you can use to make sure that your follow up is working. Um, the number one thing you want to make sure that you have in place if you're going to follow up effectively is you want to have a customer relationship management system, otherwise known as a CRM. So I know that sometimes when we start out, we do have an Excel spreadsheet that we might be working with, or we're trying to make it work with notes in our in a notebook. But those systems fail us in terms of helping us keep our word. And so having a customer relationship management system in place is really valuable because it will remind you when you promised to um, connect or update or follow up with a particular client. Lori, I'm sorry, I didn't see that your hand was up. I'm going to allow you to speak. Um, so I'm clicking allow to talk. And if you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please do that.
Sorry, no, I'm okay, MJ. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Great though to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so a CRM system that works for you is tricky. If you Google CRM systems, you can find free CRM systems. Um, there are many out there. HubSpot is free, and there's several that are free and valuable. I've worked in many different kinds of systems because often for my clients, they give me access to their CRM. So I've worked in Pipedrive, I've worked in Salesforce, um, many different systems. And they all have a lot of different bells and whistles. And maybe those aren't the right ones for you. So you want to settle on a CRM that you are comfortable with, that has the advantages that you want. The system that I have landed on, it isn't perfect, but it works for me, is called 17 Hats. It was created by a photographer, and it allows me to save all of my email correspondence with a client in one place. It allows me to invoice a client easily. It allows me to send non-disclosure agreements and other contracts for electronic signature very easily. And it emails me to remind me of when I wanted to follow up with a particular client or prospect. So it makes it very easy for me to keep my word and do that necessary follow up. So if you have a CRM system that you're using that you find valuable, maybe put that in chat so that others can know what you have found that works for you. It's very helpful in terms of our decision making there. So the language of following up. So when we follow up with someone, we don't want to ask a close-ended question. We don't want to say to them, um, you know, uh, did you like the proposal? That's a yes or no. And that doesn't move the process forward. So, as part of your sales process, you always want to be gathering more information from the person. So, your question can be, what are your thoughts on our discussion last week about my creating training for your team? That would be mine. Now, I've underlined training for your team because you would insert your work there, right? What are your thoughts? I want to hear your thoughts. Or what are your questions? What questions do you have from our discussion last week about training for your team? So you want to, again, ask an open-ended question. Now, when things go quiet or you feel that you're getting ghosted in today's language, what you want to do is ask that prospect or that client this direct question: how does training for your team fit in with your current priorities? So the idea is that you can have a great conversation with a potential client or a client, and in that moment, they are excited and interested in working with you. In that moment, it's gonna work fantastic, and you send them a proposal or a follow-up email, and it just feels like it's gonna really work perfectly. But then they go quiet or they don't respond, or yeah, you feel like you're getting ghosted, as I said. It's because since the time you spoke to them and sent them that proposal, some things have happened in the back end that are impacting their ability to respond to you. So you are uh, leaving them voicemail or you're sending them email. They don't have any news for you. So they're not telling you anything. They don't have anything to tell you. There can be lots of reasons for this. They can suddenly be involved, their company can suddenly be involved in an acquisition or a merger. It can be personal. Suddenly they're very sick or they have a family member who's very, very sick. So they've got everything put on hold. Um, there can be a shuffle, a complete shuffle in their department. So everything is put on hold. Or they could have a sudden influx in funding. And now that's where their focus is, in figuring out what to do with this funding they've just received. So it is about priorities. And so this question, how does blank fit in with your current priorities? 85% of the time, I get an answer when I include this sentence in my voicemail and my email. And I will hear back. We have put this on hold, Mary Jane, until the fall. Still interested, but we're putting it on hold till the fall. Still interested, but I'm tied up in some personal issues right now. Please follow up in 6 weeks. So you will get an answer. Lorraine is sharing, you just described my situation. Are you calling them and emailing them both? Yes, today I am, Lorraine. Thanks for that question. So my phrase today is, we do not know who is checking what when. So always good to leave a voicemail and say at the end, I'm also going to take the liberty to email you in case that works best for you. And then on the email to let them know you've also left a voicemail, so that it doesn't sound like you're harassing them, but you want to make it easy for them to communicate with you. And we don't know. Some people aren't able, especially in COVID land, some people aren't checking a voicemail as regularly as they used to. We don't know what phone number they're using if they're working from home, and so on. So I'm going to take the liberty of sending you an email in case that's easier for you, is how I end my voicemail message. And in my email, I say RE colon, following up on my voicemail earlier today. So the two things connect. And I want you to remember that as the one who's going to get paid for the work, as the person who owns the business, it's your job to keep the communication going. It's not their job to get back to you. It's not their job to get back to you. Their job is multi-leveled and overwhelming, and that's why they're struggling to get back to you. So here is the process. When you send marketing materials or a proposal to a client, potential client, be very clear when you are going to follow up. This is important because you want there to be an understanding that you will follow up in 5 days, or you will follow up on March 31st. Be clear, all right? So that the client hears that you have a process that you follow in terms of following up. So I might say that as, get in touch with me with any questions or comments, and I'll be sure to follow up with you on March 31st. Then make sure that you keep your word there, right? Because it is when we keep our word that we really build trust. Send a voicemail and an email. And in the voicemail state, I'll also send an email in case that's easier for you. In the email, include a calendar invite so they can book the follow-up conversation at their convenience. Everyone is busy. Everyone is overwhelmed. An unexpected phone call today is an unappreciated intrusion often, because people have big lists that they're keeping and they're trying to get through. So I use an appointment app called Calendly, and I include in every email the ability for the person to click on the link, look at their calendar, and book the follow-up conversation with me at a time that works best for them. Because it is all about them. and you want this follow-up call to fit in with their schedule. So Randy is saying that great success using Microsoft Bookings Calendar. Fantastic. And he's given us the link there. So that's great. So you can limit the number of days that this prospect or this client can view your calendar for the follow-up, or at least that's what I do. So I'll say, as we discussed, I'm following up. Here's a calendar link, but I might only let them see the next week because I do want to follow up in a timely manner, right? I want to encourage that we have this conversation soon. But then it also allows me to continue to follow up with a new link. And I can say, here's a refreshed link to provide you with more options. And I'll let them see another week or another 2 weeks in my calendar. But I can always go back with a refreshed link to keep the follow-up process moving forward. So I've put together, and many of you may have already seen the download, the why and how of following up. So there's more information in the download of ways to follow up and how to follow up. But know that it speaks directly. Following up religiously. I didn't want that word, but anyway, it's the one that's in my head. Following up religiously is how we build trust, how we display how much we want the work, and how much their business means to us. Now, as to Suzanne's point, I extend the time between follow ups as the silence continues. So, for example, I send the proposal, I would follow up in a week, I would follow up again in another week, but then my next follow up might be in 2 weeks, and there might be another follow up in 2 weeks. And if I still haven't heard, I would go to that question, how does this fit in with your current priorities? Again, 85% will give me an answer there. But for the 15% that aren't giving me an answer, I might then move them to a follow-up every month. Last week, I completed delivering two training courses for a company, and it was a 3-month turnaround to get that booked. Because they are busy, because they went through a merger and acquisition, all of those things. But I never, ever gave up on them. And that came up in the training because they are all salespeople. So it was good that I displayed that in terms of the work I was going to be doing for them. Great that you've been here with me. I'm conscious that we're coming close 2 minutes from 3:30. Please put any questions or comments into chat. You've been really good at that. Suzanne is saying thanks. You are very welcome. Know that you're going to get the digital version of today's slide deck, early bird notice for other webinars, and of course, bi-weekly tips through my blog. And the next one is April 7th. And in April, I'm going to focus on having conversations with your clients and customers. So the first one on April 7th is going to be about how to make sure that your conversations are both effective and efficient. Sometimes we wander off topic, conversations take too long, they don't reach the conclusion that you're looking for. You hang up and you go, well, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. There is a way to make sure this happens. So that's what we're going to talk about on April 7th, and I hope you'll join me. Too many plates spinning at the moment, but this was super helpful. Thank you, Megan. Looking forward to seeing you soon. This webinar will go up on YouTube. It has been recorded, and that is the link to the YouTube channel. So again, you'll be getting this slide deck. I hope when you go, you'll subscribe. And the reason I'm asking you to subscribe is once we have 100 subscribers to the YouTube channel, we can call it Inspire Conversation. So that's our goal. And if you're comfortable with subscribing to a YouTube channel, please do so. And process is everything in terms of your success. So I do coach with individual salespeople and entrepreneurs how to create the process that works for them, the sales process that works for them. We all need a process that we follow and that we can trust. And you can create this for yourself. And I've just finished reading Seth Godin's book called Practice, and it's basically the same message. If you create a process and you trust the process, you will succeed. So that is the coaching work that I do. And if you're interested, please go to inspireconversation.com and book a consultation with me. And that is it. I think we're at exactly, I went to 3:31. But if there's questions, cadence, yes, thank you, Vicki, cadence indeed. That's great. And Stan, thank you for that. Sorry, that was Stan Waring who gave me that word, cadence. So let me know. I'm going to hang out here and check chat. If you've got questions or comments, gladly stay on the call. But otherwise, thank you for being here with me today. And I look forward to seeing you in April. If you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn, please make that happen. That is a fantastic way to stay in touch and make sure that I'm getting valuable information in front of you on a regular basis. So